welcome to another segment of Harbor Rock Wealth Management's podcast series, Life, Health, and Wealth. I'm Jimmy Luster. This is my partner, Reuben Smith, and good friend.
Welcome back.
And today we're going to be talking about real estate. And we have a great guest here, Matt McGinnis from Pacific Keys Realty. He is the founder and broker associate. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome, man.
Thank you. Good to see your smiling faces.
Yes. I forgot how handsome you are, by the way. That mustache is just really, really fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm kind of intimidated at this point over here.
His name is Mac, and he's a month old today.
Well, welcome to Mac as well. So as promised, I always do a sports stat of the day. And so Matt is from Washington, big Seattle Mariners fan, as I found out over the years of our friendship. And I did look up this day in sports history. So June 30th, 1990, I believe Matt was around 8 or 9 years old. So he might remember this, actually. The Seattle Mariners played the Milwaukee Brewers, and they won the game 6-2. But that's not the interesting thing about the game. I don't know if it was the longest brawl on the field, but it was a 7-minute job. And from what I read, there was lots of retro, it's called the retro brawl, a lot of mustaches and mullets being tossed around. So I think this is appropriate that you're busting out that great mustache today.
Considering you showed up today with the mustache, we felt it was fitting.
Paying homage to,
and
the brawl.
And I do know, brawl. So it is dubbed the retro brawl. And so one of your favorites, I hear, Edgar Martinez. So Edgar Martinez, for those of you that don't know out there, dubbed the best DH designated hitter to ever live, and he was a right-handed hitter, and typically left-handers like Griffey. There was a Griffey sighting during that brawl, I heard too.
Okay.
Has the prettiest swing out there, one of them. Edgar Martinez was also known as having one of the prettiest right-handed swings. And so how this brawl came about, there was 2 home runs given up by the Milwaukee Brewers reliever, and it'd been chirpy all game from what I read about it. And then Edgar Martinez centered over the top with a double, and the guy just had enough, hit the next guy almost in the head, and the fight ensued. So you should watch it on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It was quite a sight.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
As soon as we leave.
So
mustaches and mullets flying.
Oh yeah.
Can't go wrong.
And then so Reuben and Matt have known each other for quite some time. Reuben, you want to let us know how you guys met?
Yeah, we go back to, I think it was 2001.
Correct.
We met down in San Diego. We were both going to college down there, and met at a restaurant that we were working at, and became quick friends. And shortly thereafter, roommates.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie took occupancy in our garage.
Mm-hmm. The garage.
Let's put it this way: the price was right.
Very much so.
But yeah, we've had a lot of good memories, a lot of good experiences, and I think if you're talking about stats of the day, Matt was actually the officiant of my wedding. So.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Add that to the resume.
That was a good time.
Did you have the mustache? I can't remember.
No mustache.
I don't think the mustache made an appearance. Okay.
Well,
but yeah, we go back a long time.
Oh yeah, sorry. Another thing for the resume then. And so speaking of resume, how did you arrive into real estate? Did someone inspire you? Did you have a moment that said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to help people out in this industry and create a life for myself. How did you arrive there?
So in 2009, I bought my first investment property. From a suggestion of a guy that I had met and still good friend. Through that process, he suggested that I start studying to get my license. So I ended up taking about a year, ended up getting my license in 2010. And then from there, I helped people invest in real estate. It was a good time in the market to put some money toward investment properties, especially in San Diego with prices being where they were at.
Sure.
And then that parlayed into first-time home buyers, which then turned into first-time home sellers, and then it's just been a journey from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you've had various roles within that industry. I know you managed an office for a number of years, and
yes.
Now you've started your own business, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I've actually had the opportunity, 2.5 years in the industry actually, to manage a office up in Rancho Penasquitos. It was one of 15 offices within that brokerage, and kind of pieced it together from there, but stayed in it for about 6 years. So I was able to do my own business as well. So that helped me stay relevant within the industry, but also learn from a lot of the top producers of what it took to, sustain long term in real estate, but then also learn from some of the mistakes or some of the problems that would arise and not have to put myself or my clients through it, but still work through those problems with, some of the big swinging agents in the industry. So so did that, and then went back to being an agent, and about a little over 2 years ago decided to start my own thing. So 4 years into it, I got my broker's license, which I could have broke off and did my own thing, opened my own office, that type of stuff. But I stuck with the management, stuck with buying and selling, and then when the time was right, I made the move to start my own thing. I have an agent on board, Jen Cowan. She's great. You've met her a couple times, her and her husband. Just doing that.
Well, we certainly can relate to what it's like to break off, even though we had the skill set many years ago to form our own company in Harbor Rock Wealth Management. It had to be the right timing, right?
Right.
So
yeah, and what does the right timing mean? I mean, there isn't really. It's the right time for you, right?
Right.
To make that leap. I mean,
it was 2021, so it was right in the middle of the
right. So let's talk about that. I mean, so you said 2010 you entered into the real estate industry, and so let's just go back and reminisce a little bit about COVID.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we know COVID arrived early 2020, right? And it came fierce. I mean, the world was shutting down quickly.
Yep.
And being a worldwide thing, if we hone into what was going on here, what happened with the real estate market? What was the initial impacts that you saw quickly with maybe relating to experience, maybe with like how an open house changed, or was there even an open house anymore? Things like that.
Yeah. So COVID hit, world shut down. The real estate market took about a 2.5 week nap, and then just started booming right shortly after. From an agent standpoint, from our standpoint, we had to adapt very quickly as far as how we were going to interact with our clients and how we were going to represent a property. So booties were a necessity, masks, what's it called?
Oh, the hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer.
Yeah, all over the place.
I
All
can't
over
imagine.
the place.
Yeah.
You had to wipe down. You had to have your own sanitary wipes that you would have to wipe down doorknobs and stuff like that.
And it was no open houses, right? It was appointment only.
There was a time where it was appointment only. You had to send over a COVID disclosure form. You had to send
I remember
over
that.
fully vetted pre-approvals, which you should as a good agent anyways send over a fully vetted pre-approval.
Sure.
Full desktop underwriting, proof of funds, all that type of stuff. But that was just to get into the door. Usually you provide that information through an offer.
Right.
But this was just to get an accepted appointment. But as things kind of figured their way out, we did have open houses. It was like walking in a hospital room now.
Yeah,
so like,
pretty sterile.
Yeah, you could only have a certain amount of people in the house at a certain time. You had to make sure there was proper ventilation. I mean, it was
So you just go in and open all the windows, even if it's raining out, your windows are open.
Pretty much. Well, it also, the sensitivity of your client as well. You had to be very sensitive to how they looked at foreign people, or not foreign people, but people coming through their house not knowing.
Oh, sure.
Because even with that COVID disclosure, you stated that you didn't have any COVID symptoms. That doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't going to show up at some point.
Right.
So it's all in good faith, and we really didn't even know too much about COVID still.
Right.
I mean, we still don't.
Exactly.
Really. I mean,
So I think, you had to adapt, you had to be sensitive, and you had to make sure that you were touching on certain things that were important to your client, above and beyond price, terms, condition, that type of stuff. So
right, having to cater to a whole nother set of emotional standards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a real estate transaction is very emotional, right?
It's very emotional.
But then now you have to kind of get into the point of, are you going to be safe? Are you not going to get sick? Are
Exactly.
you going to?
And there's multiple levels too. So you have, if it's a finance deal, you have an appraiser that comes in.
Right.
If you do your inspection, your physical inspection. If you need additional inspections, you know, you're scheduling people coming through someone's home, and you have faith that they're telling the truth and staying safe. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a news report of a gal, it's kind of timely, a couple days ago. She's a realtor, and they were touching on this very topic, and they were talking about employment.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the topic. But so they're asking her, you specifically. She's like, well, of course, you know, we saw a little pause, like you said, but the people that were affected, if people aren't selling homes, then there's no movers.
Right.
And then there's no stagers. Mm-hmm. And they were talking to all these people that were affected beyond a realtor doing a transaction.
Right.
And these people buying and selling. So again, like that ripple effect. Have you seen a lot of that come back? I'm sure open houses are, you know, happening regularly again. Yes. And, you know, all those people are back to work. And
we forget how many people are involved in a real estate transaction. It's not just a buyer's agent, a listing agent, a seller, and a buyer. You have lenders, escrow people, movers, like you said, stagers. You have inspectors. You have so many people involved in one transaction that, when the world shuts down like that and there's not a lot of transactions going on, you feel that ripple effect, absolutely. But in the case of lower rates, money influence, coming through the government, the real estate market took off. So we saw a lot of transactions happening, even given the current environment. So we started to see a lot of agents jump into the industry. Typically, you start to see people jump in when times are good. Rarely do you see people jump into an industry when times are bad.
So I've heard that so many times where you hear someone, you're at a party and they're all, oh, what do you do? Oh, I do this. What do you? Oh, I'm going to do real estate.
Yeah.
You're like, what do you mean? Well, I'm going to buy and sell homes, and I'm going to represent buyers and sellers. And okay, like that education piece to get into that, is it daunting? I mean, what's that process look like if you're going to become a realtor?
Yeah. So to your point of doing real estate, a lot of people jump in because the testing process isn't as stout as it should be, from my opinion.
What's lacking? Yeah,
it's just one of those things where you just study what the answers could possibly be, and it doesn't really have any relevance to the actual helping people buy and sell real estate.
So no replacement for experience, right? I
mean,
you're studying to a test. I'm sure some of it's helpful. I think we feel, we could agree with that in our industry too. I mean,
sure.
You're a 20-year CFP plus. We've all had to take our tests too, and they're difficult, and they're not designed to just let everyone pass. The wording can be tricky, and there's updated material. But at the end of the day, I mean,
you go through in our industry. You go through get your Series 6, your 7, or your 7, your 66, and whatever other licenses you want. But you don't. The day I passed my 7, I wasn't a vetted financial advisor. Right. I knew how to pass the test, and it's, I knew a good deal about the material on the test, but it's really about the industry experience and time in the seat, working with client interaction. That's where you earn your stripes and become vetted. So,
yeah, and I think within this industry, with the HGTV shows and all these other things, when they flash those numbers up on the screen, people think, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Sure.
And to your point, you can pass the test, but can you really go out and represent a buyer or seller with the largest financial investment of their, could be their largest financial investment of their lifetime, and have that experience to walk them through that process and keep that nest egg where it needs to go, which is either into another house or, invested with professionals such as you guys.
Right.
So that's a good point. So what does it mean to me to be or work with a realtor? And I'm looking at it from a couple different angles. One would be maybe market knowledge, right? As far as where someone's selling or where someone's looking to buy. Also from how do you market a property that you're going to list. And then the third is providing guardrails on them emotionally. I mentioned it's an emotional transaction. How do you how do you get people to stay focused and not become irrational in these transactions?
So first and foremost, you want to know why they're moving and why they're buying. What life event is going on? Where is it more space for a small family? Are they downsizing? Setting clear expectations on what I bring or an agent or a realtor brings to the table as far as how they're going to lay out the roadmap of the transaction, or how we're going to set up all these certain things prior to going live. Like, for instance, I'm working with a past client who's selling his home, and the kitchen was a little outdated. Mm-hmm. So we're not blowing the whole thing up, but we're doing some things in order to give it a little facelift to hopefully get a small investment, cost-effective investment for a higher sales price, which ultimately will be a net win or net money in his pocket. Navigating the market, making sure that you're pricing it correctly. I mean, the number one marketing tool for a property is pricing. Some people want to price high and go through that chopping block, but when buyers see blood in the water, they're going to start writing offers slightly lower than that, where if you priced it competitively, you can get that bidding war and work on multiple offers and maybe, get a little higher net value in your pocket.
So one thing that what that reminds me is one thing that we've been focusing on since we've been a year removed from, since the business has been in place for a year now, is the advocacy component of what we do. Mm-hmm. So and sometimes that comes with having difficult conversations, right? Someone has an idea that perhaps their home is worth a certain amount, and in your professional opinion, they're not even close. So you have to come in and really, check them or make sure that they're aware of the risk of going in that high or low or whatever the case is.
It is an educational process.
Right.
I mean, people buy and sell homes. It's not like you're going to the grocery store. I mean, you're
not going out to buy a shirt.
Yeah. These events take place maybe a handful of times within someone's lifetime.
Right.
And markets change. People who bought and sold in the 90s or early 2000s are going to have a completely different experience now in 2023. Not just from the market standpoint, but also from contracts, disclosures,
compliance, right?
Compliance, and to go back to your initial question as far as what do you look for in a realtor or what do we bring to the table, you have to failure to disclose by a seller is the number one. I mean, I don't want to get checked by a lawyer on this, but the number one reason people get sued in a real estate transaction. So if you have people that want to do it on their own for sale by owners, or you have somebody who has a cousin, who has an uncle, who has a friend that is in the industry that just got his license, just be very careful about who you choose to represent you, because it's not just about buying and selling. It's about walking you through the transaction and making sure that you're protecting your client's best interest.
Right. Not
only during the transaction, but post-transaction, making sure your files are in compliance, making sure that you have all the necessary disclosures. So, there's a lot of...
So markets have become, in our world, in your traditional investment markets, there are points and periods that we've worked through where I would call markets being irrational.
Yes.
Okay, meaning you could throw the dart at the business section of the journal and pick a stock, and there's a good chance during that time frame you'll make some money. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, I think we're coming off of a market, an irrational real estate market over the last few years, where I don't know if I guess the value of the property is whatever someone is willing to pay for it.
Right.
However, prices came up, at least here in Southern California, astronomically. So what are you seeing in the industry? You mentioned there's a lot of new realtors joining in
during the boom.
During the boom. So are you seeing attrition now? Is it the opposite?
I believe the most recent statistic that came out is 60,000 agents up to this point have left the industry
since
the beginning of the year.
Oh,
So within the
in
last
6 months. So
Yeah.
10,000 a month
About
on
10,000
average, or wow.
on average. And I think what that shows us is that, you know, it's not what you see on HGT. It's not an easy industry to be in. It takes a lot of grind, a lot of grit. It's not one of those things where you can just sign a listing and then collect a $15,000-$20,000 check.
Right.
Like there's a process that's involved, and also, you know, to your point when you mentioned or when I mentioned that people were jumping in, you still had to have a professional back you, because you, instead of getting 1 or 2 offers, you were getting 30, 40, 50 offers. So for somebody to have to review all those and make sure that they're choosing the right offer for their client, it takes
Sure.
a professional to review all that stuff. Terms, conditions. A lot of people were getting rent backs because they didn't have a place to go. Yeah, it's a great time to sell, but where are you going to go?
Right.
And the reason we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in the market is because as of April, I think April of last year, to now, we saw rates increase substantially over
Sure.
a short amount of time, and it stalled the market. But on the flip side, we have lack of inventory. So buyers came to terms on, you know what, let's take the higher rate. Let's maybe overextend on the short term. Hope rates come down. We'll refi. But at least we got our foot in the door.
Right.
The people who kind of got pinched are those who may have overpaid during the boom early 2022. They got a great rate. They got a great payment, but they might be a little bit upside down in their equity position. But unless they plan on selling short term, it doesn't matter.
It won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's kind of this, I feel there may have been a buyer's remorse kind of in early 2022, maybe late 2021. But it really depends on your motivation. Are you in it to flip it? That's what people got pinched in the boom in the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006.
Oh yeah.
04 to 06, because they were banking on that equity position.
Sure.
Of, well, we buy it today for X amount and we're going to make so much money in 6 months to a year, and the market fell out. But
so once again, time. I mean, you really need the time, right? And that may. I want to shift into rental property purchases and how that fits into an individual's portfolio of wealth and how they're building that wealth. And I know that both of you guys have had experience in this. I have not. A lot of our clients have, and as Ruben said earlier, a lot of our clients firmly believe and have proven, especially in Southern California, that property ownership is a keystone to the backing of building wealth. Can you guys maybe speak to our listeners about going about that process and what to consider in that process, and some of your experiences with it?
Yeah, you just touched on it. There's a bulk of our clients, I'd say a fair share of our clients, have a majority of their wealth in real estate. So real estate is something that we are constantly talking about and planning around. Now, the good thing with real estate, it's a physical, tangible asset. If you're buying in areas that are in higher demand, there's a good chance that you're going to maintain value and it's going to increase. The downside with real estate is being overweight in real estate is that it's not necessarily something that you can cut a check on should life happen. So as a planner, we're in a position where we really like real estate and we see it as a valuable position in someone's overall wealth or portfolio, however, within reason. Okay, so that's a lot of our of how we address real estate for clients. From a personal standpoint, I've owned properties, rental properties before, and for that reason, a lot of it was because I saw where clients were positioned in real estate, and it made sense. It seemed like, okay, this seems like it would be a fit for me. What wasn't a fit for me is that I was buying out of state, and the problem with buying out of state is that I didn't feel like I had control. I didn't have I didn't have immediate access, or I couldn't have visibility over the property. So I think I will eventually get back into rental properties and adding real estate again into my portfolio. But I think that just goes to show it's different strokes for different folks, right? Yeah. It's, but yeah, what's your thoughts on the rental market or rentals in general?
So I look at rental property in 2 categories. You have investments that you're banking on an equity position, very low cash flow, maybe no cash flow, maybe negative cash flow, but you know that asset's going to appreciate over time. Mm-hmm. And then the second category would be cash flow, where you can maximize that monthly income. Maybe in certain areas, you're not going to get that appreciation. I have investment properties up in Washington. I have some down in San Diego, and then I also have some in Memphis. Now, the ones in Memphis are cash cows. Those ones, I know those aren't going to. If I bought one for $50,000, 25 to 30, 100 years from today, it's probably going to be worth $50,000. Even if it's worth $25,000, doesn't really matter because I'm making that monthly cash flow that will help build that account up, and then I can go deploy that money somewhere else. Now, from an equity standpoint, you can invest in something that maybe fix up over time, or you can gradually increase rents, mm-hmm. that type of thing. And then 3 to 5 years, you take that asset, you 1031 exchange it in a tax deferred mm-hmm. way, and then you can buy another investment property. You kind of push that snowball down the hill. 10, 15, 20 years, you went from, say, $150,000 in equity to $15 million in equity. Then it would be on your guys' profession to say, how can we now reposition
They're unwinding out of that.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So it goes hand in hand. So for you guys to put that plan in place for a lot of people is huge. To then take some risk out of real estate and then maybe invest into something a little bit more.
Right, unwinding it
mm-hmm.
with tax, doing it tax efficiently, getting attorneys, lawyers involved,
exactly.
all that, and CPAs.
Exactly, because
right.
a lot of people do invest into real estate to have that nest egg. Like I'm an independent contractor, so I'm not going to have a juicy 401k or a retirement.
Yeah, you're playing by different rules. Yeah,
that I can really lean on. My wife's in the school district. She's going to have a decent, pension at the end of her term when she decides to retire. But my retirement is what I know, and that's real estate. Now, eventually, I'll start to unwind, as you guys say, at some point. But right now, it's just how can I build to continue that cash flow, and then stake some equity positions in some other properties, and then look at some exit strategies.
Yeah, that's a very similar story to a lot of our clients that we work with now that they're at a position where they no longer are in the accumulation phase. Mm-hmm. How do we unwind this? How do we do it tax efficiently?
Right.
How do I replace income?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things there that we solve for clients.
Interesting. So about 45 years ago or so, my dad bought a home in San Juan Capistrano, and that was the only house I ever lived in.
Yeah.
And San Juan, great real estate market, it's very strong, nice neighborhood. And we like to joke with my dad that he bought that house for like 7 raspberries, yeah. And, we can do the math on, what it might be worth today.
Yeah.
But first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Not sure if you still come across a lot
Absolutely.
of first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, getting advice from a professional like yourself, I know that in my first-time home buyer experience, I really leaned on my agent, mm-hmm. Even though I used to be in the mortgage industry, and I did have some a little background and experience in that industry, but I really knew nothing.
Yeah.
What kind of advice might you have for that first-time home buyer? And a lot of our listeners out there have probably had a real estate transaction at this point, but their kids might haven't, or a lot of their family members. How would your approach be with a first-time home buyer experience?
So typically with first-time home buyers, they're doing research. They want to buy. They're probably doing research on areas that they like, that they want to be in. But first and foremost, I would suggest speaking with a lender. I have some good lenders that I've worked with in the past. I have one specifically that I work with now that's a great guy, and he can break down the numbers. I would say that would be first and foremost, so you can get an idea of what it costs. Because price is one thing. What's your rate? What's your monthly payment?
So you're kind of backing into that process first before you're doing the home hunt necessarily?
Yeah, I would. I mean, everybody's going to hunt homes. I still hunt homes no matter where I
It's fun.
It's fun. It's
It's
great.
fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Imagining
time.
like, oh man, look at that
Yeah.
dining room. That we could have our Thanksgiving dinner there. Or,
Yeah.
what a bathroom, you know,
Yeah.
like shower's amazing.
And
Yeah,
you'll
it's
see
fun.
the estimated payment on most of these apps. Redfin, Zillow, all these apps will have an estimated payment, but you don't really know what the bottom line is, what the number is. How much do you have for a down payment? Are there other loan programs that might be able to suit you better in the short term? Get you into a property and then look at it, as I mentioned earlier, what's that stretch number? If you need to stretch, or if you're more conservative, don't stretch. You know, what's your current rent? Working it from a number standpoint backwards, I think, is how you really get to that ultimate number. Working with an agent, I've been blessed to have a lot of my business come from referrals. So I will talk to first-time buyers or sellers or buyers who are buying again, and I'll help them get to that financing portion first. Let's talk to a lender. Let's see what the numbers look like, and then let's start looking at some homes. I'm not going to shut somebody down if they haven't spoke to somebody about financing and just say, no, I'm not going to. Don't send me.
Yeah, it's a
homes.
waste of my time.
Yeah, a waste of my time. There's no one wastes my time when it comes to real estate, because at some point you're going to buy, you're going to sell, or you may know somebody who's going to buy or sell.
Well, it's been my experience. My experience was the first time my first home purchase. My mom saw the property, told me to go look at it, and I was in escrow before I even talked to a lender. And then we had to back in to figure out how this was going to work.
Oh my gosh.
And
Scary.
fortunately and unfortunately, but no, it didn't hurt me, but it was at a time when you could do stated income loans.
Right.
And I had just started in this career, and I overstated my income slightly, not drastically, but it got me into the property, and I was in this interest-only mortgage that was just a ticking time bomb, and luckily it didn't hurt me. I ended up getting out of it, but so having that gets back into the advocacy piece as far as, look, I want your business. I want to work with you. I appreciate the referral. I am going to take care of you. In order for me to take care of you, we got to take a step back. Let's hammer out the cost first, and that's actually where we come in as financial advisors. If they have a planner they're working with, refer them back to their advisor, and we'll map out. We help clients all the time map out what the real cost is and what their purchasing power could be.
Yeah.
And
I think
there's got to be some sort of planning process kind of almost in that.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of blew past that part. Yeah, from a buying and a selling.
Yeah, what does a blueprint look like? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to work with somebody that you trust, and that's in any industry really. But some buyers will just, and I don't want to say anything negative about specific situations, but Redfin, they'll have people who will open a door for you, and good on you. I mean,
Sure.
but if a buyer feels that they know more than a professional, then maybe they can negotiate a better deal for themselves. It just depends.
Well, let's put it. Let me flip the script then. Let's say if tomorrow you woke up and you were no longer in the business.
Yeah.
Right.
What would I do?
And you were going to buy a house. You could do it on your own because you know enough.
Yes,
right?
But I would still have a professional to back me as far as file compliance, making sure that the contracts haven't changed, the disclosures haven't changed. I would still run it through a brokerage.
Doctors need doctors, lawyers need lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, I could, if God forbid I get into any legal trouble, in theory, I could go represent myself, depending on what it was, but I would hire an attorney 100% to come represent me on that.
Well, do you think that has anything to do also with the emotional piece of it? I mean, you're personally involved in something, and you have to step back with compliance and everything. It's too many moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts.
It can be a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
You might have the knowledge to speak to it confidently, professionally, advise someone else, but are you going to look in the mirror and do your own heart surgery?
Right.
No. I mean,
yeah,
like, honestly.
I mean, you need that kind of, you need somebody to keep you grounded in a sense when it comes to certain things, because real estate is an emotional thing, buying or selling.
It can be crippling.
It can be. I mean, from a seller standpoint, there's a great real estate coach that tells a story about, a hole in the wall. For a buyer, that's a hole in the wall. We're gonna ask for that to get fixed. Well, to a seller, that's when little Johnny fell down the stairs and cracked his head when he was 3. So there's like this personal attachment to the property, Where if you don't have somebody that's looking out for your best interest or keeping you focused on your exit, or what you want to do, then you can get caught up in certain things.
That's funny. What the first house that I bought and then sold, what I thought was it was a 1925 craftsman style, Spanish style home, and what I thought was really cool about it and gave the house character was the buyer's was a concern. You know, was a problem, and so we weren't seeing eye to eye.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, to your point about first-time buyers, first-time sellers, or any transaction or even investment, you want to have somebody that's gonna be there for you, tell you the truth, and not. One of the biggest things in this industry is ego, and when an ego gets involved in a transaction, that's when things start to go sideways, and you forget who the ultimate parties in a deal, and that's the buyer and the seller.
Right.
We're the conduit to get those people to where they need to be in the most efficient manner, with the most protection, and for the best deal, in a sense, whether that's on the buy side or on the sell side, most money in a seller's pocket, as we possibly can. And I think that comes with educating the clients on the process, being transparent, candid to an extent, and making sure that you put their best interests in front of your own. And that's
well said.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks for all your insights today. You've been an awesome guest. Always great to see you. We appreciate all of you out there for listening. Thank you for joining us in our digital barbershop, and make sure you tune into the next show. Thank you.